are a little bit more quiet today. We are going to continue our reading. It's a little early in the morning, but I figured, why not? We'll do some reading this morning and get our live in. I was hoping to do this last night, but I wanted to get a little bit more quiet. I know the readings haven't been really like my normal live streams, but I kind of enjoy reading, and The Running Man has become one that is very interesting to find out what exactly is going to happen to the man. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with minus 0.85. We left off with 0.86 and finished that one day before yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and read, and we're going to try to read at least an hour today. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask. We are following a man named Ben Richards. So, and as anybody that's been listening knows, the book, the story of the book is different than the movie, which is a lot of times what happens. Books are a lot longer than movies, and if they tried to do the actual book, they probably wouldn't be able to fit everything in. They'd have to do many books, as most everybody knows. So what they've done is they took the basis of The Running Man and the show. Oh, give me 1 second. Yes? Is there anybody what? No, go ahead and let her out. What's wrong? Oh. All right, yeah, I can come get her. Okay. I'll be right up to let her out. All right. Love you. Bye. I will actually be right back. I'm going to go grab our puppy. She's upstairs. Our 4-year-old goes upstairs when my son's worker comes. So give me a second, and I'm going to, you know what, it's quiet. Aside from pup barking, I'm going to go get our 4-year-old and then let them out, and then we'll read. Yes, you can stay put. What are you whining about? Oh no, what's your problem? You're Maui? Come here. Baby! Would you like outside? Miss Hyperness. Come on. Alright, outside. Yes, outside. No. Outside. Come on. One of these days, she's going to knock me over. That she is. Our puppy's only a year old. Oh, she's hyper. She's hyper. She's hyper. Gracious. I had to go upstairs, grab our 4-year-old. She likes to bark. Puppy likes to jump. They just got done eating not too long ago. So, yeah. They're outside for a little bit. Catch my breath. Because I hurried back. Yawn all the way. But yeah, Richard's in this, it shows his wife and his baby's the reason why he's doing this game. And it's different than the movie, but I really like it so far. So we'll see how we, well, there's my other bookmark, how we get through this. So, as we know, he's made it to through all of the tests. They did physical tests, mental tests, oral tests. So he's made it to the floor where he's in a very nice suite, and we're going to see how it goes. So minus 0.85 and counting. And in case you're wondering, this is from the Bauchman books. This is the book. It's a little tattered because it's been very worn. It was, I think this one was from my stepdad, who got it from somebody else. So it's been very worn, very red, but that's a good thing when it's used. So, and let's see, minus 0.85 and counting. The suite was sumptuous. Wall-to-wall carpeting, almost deep enough to breaststroke in, covered the floors of all three rooms: living room, bedroom, and bath. Why put a carpet in a bathroom? The freebie was turned off. Blessed silence prevailed. There were flowers in the vases, and on the wall next to the door was a button discreetly marked service. The service would be fast, too, Richards thought cynically. There were 2 cops stationed outside his 9th floor suite, just to make sure he didn't do any wandering. He didn't go wandering. He didn't leave his room. He pushed the service button, and the door opened. "Yes, Mr. Richards," one of the cops said. Richards fancied he would see how sour that Mr. tasted in his mouth. "The bourbon you asked for will be—" "It's not that," Richards said. He showed the cop the book of coupons Killian had left for him. "I want you to take this somewhere. Just write the name and address, Mr. Richards, and I'll see that it's delivered." Richards found the cobbler's receipt and wrote his address and Sheila's name on the back of it. He gave the tattered paper and the coupon book to the cop. He was turning away when a new thought struck Richards. "Hey, just a second." The cop turned back. Richards plucked the coupon book out of his hand. He opened it to the first coupon and tore 1/10 of it along the perforated line. Equivalent value, $1 new. There's new dollars, there's old dollars. I don't know if I'll ever catch on to that one. "Do you know a cop named Charlie Grady?" "Charlie?" The cop looked at him wearily. "Yeah, I know Charlie. He's got 5th floor duty." "Give him this." Richards handed him the coupon section. "Tell him the extra 50 cents is his user's fee." The cop turned away again, and Richards called him back once more. "You'll bring me written receipts from my wife and from Grady, won't you?" Disgust showed openly on the cop's face. "Aren't you the trusting soul?" "Sure," Richards said, smiling thinly. "You guys taught me that. South of the canal. Taught me all about it." "It's going to be fun," the cop said, "watching them go after you. I'm going to be glued to my freebie with a beer in each hand." "Just bring me the receipts," Richards said, and closed the door gently in the cop's face. The bourbon came 20 minutes later, and Richards told the surprised deliveryman that he would like a couple of thick novels sent up. "Novels?" "Books, read, words, movable press." Richards pantomimed, flipping pages. "Yeah." "Yes, sir," he said doubtfully. "Do you have a dinner order?" Christ, the shit is getting thick. He was drowning in it. Richards saw a sudden fancied cartoon. Man falls into outhouse hole and drowns in pink shit that smells like Chanel No. 5. The kicker? It still tastes like shit. Steak, peas, mashed potatoes. God, what was Sheila sitting down to? Protein pill and a cup of fake coffee. Milk, apple cobbler with cream. Got it? "Yes, sir. Would you like—" "No," Richard said, suddenly distraught. "No. Get out." He had no appetite. Absolutely none. Minus 0.84 and counting. With the sour amusement, Richards thought that the game's bellboy had taken him literally about the novels. He must have picked them out with a ruler as his only guide. Anything over 1.5 inches is okay. He had brought Richard's 3 books he had never heard of. 2 golden oldies titled God is an Englishman and Not as a Stranger, and a huge tome written 3 years ago called The Pleasure of Serving. Richard's peeking to the first and wrinkled his nose. Poor boy makes good in General Atomics, rises from engine wiper to gear tradesman, takes night courses on what, Richards wondered, Monopoly money, falls in love with beautiful girl. Apparently syphilis hadn't rotted her nose off yet. At a block orgy, promoted to junior technical following dazzling aptitude scores. 3-year marriage contract follows, and Richards threw the book across the room. God is an Englishman was a little better. He poured himself a bourbon on the rocks and settled into the story. By the time the discreet knock came, he was 300 pages in, and pretty well in the bag to boot. One of the bourbon bottles was empty. He went to the door, holding the other in his hand. The cop was there. Your receipts, Mr. Richards, he said, and pulled the door closed. Sheila had not written anything, but had sent one of Kathy's baby pictures. He looked at it and felt ease of tears of drunkenness prick his eyes. He put it in his pocket and looked at the other receipt. Charlie Grady had written briefly on the back of a traffic ticket form. Thanks, maggot. Get stuffed. Charlie Grady. Richard snickered and let the paper flitter to the carpet. Thanks, Charlie, said to the empty room. I needed that. He looked at the picture of Kathy again, a tiny red-faced infant.
Why is he freaking out so badly?
Because the dogs are down here usually, and he doesn't like the dogs. Hi, bud. The cats don't like the dogs don't like the cats. It's a great time. He looked at the picture of Kathy again, a tiny red-faced infant of 4 days at the time of the photo, screaming her head off, swimming in a white cradle dress that Sheila had made herself.
I'm screaming right now, and I'm in my underwear.
You're not over here. It looks like shorts and a tank top to me, so you're good.
It's underwear.
Well, get yourself something to eat. Don't forget your meds. Swimming in a white cradle dress that Sheila had made herself. He felt the tears lurking and made himself think of good old Charlie's thank you note. He wondered if he could kill the entire second bottle before he passed out, and decided to find out. He almost made it. Minus 0.83 and counting. Richard spent Saturday living through a huge hangover. He was almost over it by Saturday evening and ordered 2 more bottles of bourbon with supper. He got through both of them and woke up in the pale early light of Sunday morning, seeing large caterpillars with flat, murderous eyes crawling slowly down far bedroom wall. He decided then it would be against his best interest to wreck his reactions completely before Tuesday, and laid off the booze. This hangover was slower dissipating. He threw up a good deal, and then there was nothing left to throw up. He had dry heaves. These tapered off around 6 o'clock Sunday evening, and he ordered soup for dinner. No bourbon. He asked for a dozen Nico Rock dicers to play on the sweet sound system, and tired of them quickly. He went to bed early and slept poorly. He spent most of Monday in a tiny glassed-in terrace that opened off the bedroom. He was very high above the waterfront now, and the day was a series of sun and showers that was fairly pleasant. He read 2 novels, went to bed early again, and slept a little better. There was an unpleasant dream. Sheila was dead, and he was at her funeral. Somebody had propped her up in her coffin and stuffed a grotesque corsage of new dollars in her mouth. He tried to run to her to remove the obscenity. Hands grabbed him from behind. He was being held by a dozen cops. One of them was Charlie Grady. He was grinning and saying, "This is what happens to losers, maggot." They were putting their pistols to his head when he woke up. Tuesday, he said to no one at all, and rolled out of bed. The fashionable GA sunburst clock on the far wall said it was 9 minutes after 7. The live TriCast of The Running Man would be going out all over North America in less than 11 hours. He felt a hot drop of fear in his stomach. In 23 hours, he would be fair game. He had a long hot shower, dressed in his coveralls, ordered ham and eggs for breakfast. He also got the bellboy on duty to send up a carton of Blams. Blams are his brand of cigarettes in this, so... He spent the rest of the morning and early afternoon reading quietly. It was 2 o'clock on the nose when the single formal rap came at the door. 3 police and Arthur B. Burns, looking potty and more than a bit ridiculous in a game's singlet, walked in. All the cops were carrying move-alongs. "It's time for your final briefing, Mr. Richards," Burns said. "Would you?" "Sure," Richards said. He marked his place in his book he had been reading and put it down on the coffee table. He was suddenly terrified, close to panic, and he was very glad there was no perceptible shake in his fingers. 082 and counting. The 10th floor of the Games building was a great deal different from the ones below, and Richards knew that he was meant to go no higher. The fiction of upward mobility, which started in the grimly street-level lobby. Reusable. They're for picnic baskets. Grimy street-level lobby ended here on the 10th level. This was the broadcast facility. The hallways were wide, white, and stark. Bright yellow go-karts powered by GA solar cell motors pottered here and there, carrying loads of freebie technicos to studios and control rooms. A cart was waiting for them when the elevator stopped, and the 5 of them, Richards, Burns, and the cops, climbed aboard. Necks craned, and Richards was pointed out several times as they made the trip. One woman in a yellow Games shorts and halter outfit winked and blew Richards a kiss. He gave her the finger. They seemed to travel miles through dozens of interconnecting corridors. Richards caught glimpses into at least a dozen studios, one of them containing the infamous treadmill seen on Treadmill to Bucks. A tour group from uptown was trying it out and giggling. At last they came to a stop before a door which read, "The Running Man. Absolutely no admittance." Burns waved to the guard in the bulletproof booth beside the door, and then looked at Richards. "Put your ID in the slot between the guard booth and the door," Burns said. Richards did it. His card disappeared into the slot, and a small light went on in the guard booth. The guard pushed a button, and the door slid open. Richards got back into the cart, and they were trundled into the room beyond. "Where's my card?" Richards asked. "You don't need it anymore." They were in the control room. A console section was empty except for a bald technico who was sitting in front of the blank monitor screen, reading numbers into the microphone. Across to the left, Dan Killian and 2 men Richards hadn't met were sitting around a table with frosty glasses. One of them was vaguely familiar, too pretty to be a technico. "Hello, Mr. Richards." "Hello, Arthur. Would you care for a soft drink, Mr. Richards?" Richards found he was thirsty. It was quite warm on 10 in spite of the many air conditioning units he had seen. "I'll have a Rudy Toot," he said. Killian rose, went to the cold cabinet, snapped the lid from the plastic squeeze bottle. Richards sat and took the bottle with a nod. "Mr. Richards, this gentleman to your right is Fred Victor, the director of The Running Man. This other fellow, as I'm sure you know, is Bobby Thompson. Thompson, of course, host and MC of The Running Man. He wore a natty green tunic, slightly iridescent, and sported a mane of hair that was silvery, attractive enough to be suspect." "Do you diet?" Richards asked. Thompson's impeccable eyebrow went up. "I beg your pardon?" "Never mind," Richards said. "You'll have to make allowances for Mr. Richards," Killian said, smiling. "He seems afflicted with an extreme case of the rudes." Quite understandable, Thompson said, and lit a cigarette. Richards felt a wave of unreality surge over him, under the circumstances. Come over here, Mr. Richards, if you please, Victor said, taking charge. He led Richards to a bank of screens. On the other side of the room, the technico had finished with his numbers and had left the room. Victor punched 2 buttons, and left-right views of the running man sprang into view. We don't do a run-through here, Victor said. We think it detracts from spontaneity. Bobby just wings it, and he does a pretty good damn job. We go on at 6 o'clock, parting time. Bobby is center stage on that raised blue dais. He does the lead-in, giving a rundown on you. The monitor will flash a couple of still pictures. You'll be in the wings at stage right, flanked by 2 games guards. They'll come on with you, armed with riot guns. Move-alongs would be more practical if you decided to give trouble, but the riot guns are good theater. Sure, Richard said. There will be a lot of booing from the audience. We pack it that way because it's good theater, just like the kill ball matches. Are they going to shoot me with fake bullets? Richards asked. You could put a few blood bags on me to spatter on cue. That would be good theater, too. Pay attention, please, Victor said. You and the guards go on when your name is called. Bobby will interview you. Feel free to express yourself as colorfully as you please. It's all good theater. Then, around 6:10, just before the first network promo, you'll be given your stack money and exit, sans guards, at stage left. Do you understand? Yes. What about Laughlin? Victor frowned and lit a cigarette. He comes on after you at 6:15. We run two contestants simultaneously because often one of the contestants is adept at staying ahead of the hunters. With the kid as the backup? Mr. Janksy, yes. But none of this concerns you, Mr. Richards. When you exit stage left, you'll be given a tape machine, which is about the size of a box of popcorn. It weighs 6 pounds. With it, you'll be given 60 tape clips, which are about 4 inches long. The equipment will fit inside a coat pocket without a bulge. It's a triumph of modern technology. Swell. Victor pressed his lips together. As Dan has already told you, Richards, you're a contestant only for the masses. Actually, you're a working man, and you should view your role in that light. The tape cartridges can be dropped into any mail slot, and they will be delivered express to us so we can edit them for airing that night. Failure to deposit 2 clips per day will result in legal default of payment. But I'll still be hunted down? Right. So mail those tapes. They won't give away your location. The hunters operate independently of the broadcasting section. Richard had his doubts about that, but said nothing. After we give you the equipment, you will be escorted to the street elevator. This goes directly to Rampart Street. Once you're there, you're on your own. He paused. Questions? No. Then Mr. Killian has one more money detail to straighten out with you. They walked back to where Dan Killian was in conversation with Arthur B. Burns. Richards asked for another Rudy Toot and got it. Mr. Richards, Killian said, twinkling his teeth at him. As you know, you leave the studio unarmed. But this is not to say you cannot arm yourself by fair means or foul. Goodness, no. You and your estate will be paid an additional $100 for any hunter or representative of the law you should happen to dispatch. I know. Don't tell me, Richard said. It's good theater. Killian smiled delightedly. How very astute of you. Yes, however, try not to bag any innocent bystanders. That's not kosher. Richard said nothing. The other aspect of the program, the stoolies and independent cameramen, I know. They're not stoolies. They're good North American citizens. It was difficult to tell whether Killian's tone was hurt was realistic or ironic. Anyway, there's an 800 number for anyone who spots you. A verified sighting pays $100 new. A sighting which results in a kill pays $1,000. We pay independent cameramen $10 a foot and up. Retire to scenic Jamaica on blood money, Richards cried, spreading his arms wide. Get your picture on the 100 3D weeklies. Be the idol of millions. Just holograph for details. That's enough, Killian said quietly. Bobby Thompson was buffing his fingernails. Victor had wandered out and could be faintly heard yelling at someone about camera angles. Killian pressed a button. Miss Jones, ready for you, sweets. He stood up and offered his hand again. Make up next, Mr. Richards. And the lighting runs. Then the lighting runs. You'll be quartered off stage, and we won't meet again before you go on. So, it's been grand, Richards said. He declined the hand. Mrs. Jones led him out. It was 2:30. Minus 081 and counting. Richard stood in the wings with the cop on each side, listening to the studio audience as they frantically applauded Bobby Thompson. He was nervous. He jeered at himself for it, but the nervousness was a fact. Jeering would not make it go away. It was 6:01. Tonight's first contestant is a shrewd, resourceful man from south of the canal in our own home city, Thompson was saying. The monitor faded to a stark portrait of Richards in his baggy gray work shirt, taken by a hidden camera days before. The background looked like the fifth floor waiting room. It had been retouched, Richards thought, to make his eyes deeper, his forehead a little lower, his cheeks more shallow. His mouth had been given a jeering, curling expression by some Technico's airbrush. All in all, the Richards on the monitor was terrifying, the angel of urban death, brutal, not very bright, but possessed of a certain primal animal cunning. The uptown apartment dweller's boogeyman. This man is Benjamin Richards, age 28. Know the face well. In a half hour, this man will be on the prowl. A verified sighting brings you $100 new. A sighting which results in a kill results in $1,000 new for you. Richard's mind was wandering. It came back to the point with a mighty snap. And this is the woman that Ben Richards' award will go to, if and when he is brought down. The picture dissolved to a still of Sheila, but the airbrush had been at work again, this time, wielded with a heavier hand. The results were brutal. The sweet, not-so-good-looking face had been transformed into that of a vapid slattern. Full, pouty lips, eyes that seemed to glitter with avarice, suggestion of double chin fading down to what appeared to be her bare breasts. You bastard, Richard grated. He lunged forward, but powerful arms held him back. Simmer down, buddy. It's only a picture. A moment later, he was half led, half dragged on stage. The audience reaction was immediate. The studio was filled with screamed cries of boo, cycle bum, get out, you creep, kill him, kill the bastard, you eat it, get out, get out. Bobby Thompson held his arms up and shouted good-naturedly for quiet. Let's hear what he's got to say. The audience quieted, but reluctantly. Richard stood bull-like under the hot lights with his head lowered. He knew he was projecting exactly the aura of hate and defiance that they had wanted him to project, but he could not help it. He stared at Thompson with hard, red-rimmed eyes. Somebody's going to eat their own balls for that picture of my wife, he said. Speak up, Mr. Richards, Thompson cried, with just the right tone of contempt. Nobody will hurt you, at least, not yet. More screams and hysterical vituperation from the audience. Richard suddenly wheeled to face them, and they quieted as if slapped. Women stared at him with frightened, half-sexual expressions. Men grinned at him with blood-hate in their eyes. You bastards, he cried. If you want to see somebody die so bad, why don't you kill each other? His final words were drowned in some screams. People from the audience, perhaps paid to do so, were trying to get on stage. The police were holding them back. Richards faced them, knowing how he must look. "Thank you, Mr. Richards, for those words of wisdom." The contempt from the palpable now, and the crowd's nearly silent again. The contempt was palpable. And the crowd was nearly silent again, was eating it up. "Would you like to tell our audience in the studio and at home how long you think you can hold out?" "I want to tell everybody in the studio and at home that wasn't my wife. That was a cheap fake." The crowd drowned him out. Their screams of hate had reached a near fever pitch. Thompson waited nearly a minute for them to quiet down a little, and then repeated, "How long do you expect to hold out, Mr. Richards?" "I expect to go the whole 30, Richards said coolly. "I don't think you've got anybody who can take me." More screaming, shaking fists. Someone threw a tomato. Bobby Thompson faced the audience again and cried, "With those last cheap words of bravado, Mr. Richards will be led from the stage. Tomorrow at noon, the hunt begins. Remember his face. It will be next to you. It may be next to you on the pneumo bus, in the jet plane, at a 3D rack, in your own local kill-ball area. Tonight, he's in Harding. Tomorrow, in New York, Boise, Albuquerque, Columbus, skulking outside your home. Will you report him?" "Yes," they screamed. Richard suddenly gave them the finger, both fingers. This time the rush for the stage was by no stretch of the imagination simulated. Richards was rushed out of the stage left exit before they could rip him apart on camera, thus depriving the network of all the juicy upcoming coverage. -80 and counting. 080 and counting. Killing was in the wings and convulsed with amusement. "Fine performance, Mr. Richards. Fine. God, I wish I could give you a bonus. Those fingers? Superb." "We aim to please," Richards said. The monitors were dissolving to a promo. "Give me the goddamn camera and go f*** yourself." Yes, there are swear words. So, with that warning, give me the goddamn camera and go fuck yourself. That's generically, I almost coughed. "That's generically impossible," Killian said, still grinning. "But here's the camera." He took it from the Technico, who had been cradling it, fully loaded and ready to go, and here's the clips. He handed Richards a small, surprisingly heavy oblong box wrapped in oilcloth. Richards dropped the camera into one coat pocket, the clips into the other. "Okay, where's the elevator?" "Not so fast," Killian said. "You've got a minute. 12 of them, actually. Your 12 hours leeway doesn't start officially until 6:30. The screams of rage had begun again. Looking over his shoulder, Richards saw that Laughlin was on. His heart went out to him. "I like you, Richards, and I think you'll do well," Killian said. "You have a certain crude style that I enjoy immensely. I'm a collector, you know. Cave art and Egyptian artifacts are my areas of specialization. You are more analogous to the cave art than to the Egyptian urns. But no matter. I wish you could be preserved, collected, if you please, just as my Asian cave paintings have been collected and preserved. Grab a recording of my brainwaves, you bastard. They're on record." "So I'd like to give you a piece of advice," Killian said, ignoring him. "You don't really have a chance. Nobody does, with the whole nation in on the manhunt, and with the incredibly sophisticated equipment and training that the hunters have. But if you stay low, you'll last longer. Use your legs instead of your weapons you happen to pick up, and stay close to your own people." He leveled a finger at Richards in emphasis. "Not these good middle-class folks out there. They hate your guts. You symbolize all the fears of this dark and broken time. It wasn't all show and audience packing out there, Richards. They hate your guts. Can you feel it?" "Yes," Richards said. "I felt it, and I hate them too." Killian smiled. That's why they're killing you. He took Richard's arm, and grip was surprisingly strong. This way. Behind them, Laughlin was being dragged by Bobby Thompson to the audience's satisfaction. Down a white corridor, their footfalls echoed hollowly all alone, one elevator at the end. This is where you and I part company, Killian said. Express to the street, 9 seconds. He offered his hand for the 4th time, and Richards refused it again. Yet he lingered a moment. What if I could go up? He asked, and gestured with his head toward the ceiling and the 80 stories above the ceiling. Who would I kill up there? Who could I kill up there? Who could I kill if I went right to the top? Killian laughed softly and punched the button beside the elevator. The doors popped open. That's what I like about you, Richards. You think big. Richards stepped into the elevator. The doors slid down toward each other. Stay low, Killian repeated, and then Richards was alone. The bottom dropped out of his stomach as the elevator sank toward the street. Minus 079 and counting. The elevator opened directly onto the street. A cop was standing by its frontage on Nixon Memorial Park, but he did not look at Richards as he stepped out, only tapped his move along reflectively and stared into the soft drizzle that filled the air. The drizzle had brought early dusk to the city. The lights glowed mystically through the darkness, and the people moving on Rampart Street in the shadow of the Games building were only insubstantial shadows, as Richards knew he must be himself. He breathed deeply of the wet, sulfur-tainted air. It was good in spite of the taste. It seemed that he'd just been let out of prison, rather than from one communicating cell to another. The air was good. The air was fine. Stay close to your own people, Killian had said. Of course he was right. Richards hadn't needed Killian to tell him that, or to know that the heat would be heaviest in Co-op City when the truce broke at noon tomorrow. But by then, he would be over the hills and far away. He walked 3 blocks and hailed a cab. He was hoping the cab's freebie would be busted. A lot of them were, but this one was A1 working order, and blaring the closing credits of The Running Man. Shit. Where, buddy? Robard Street. That was 5 blocks from his destination. When the cab dropped him, he would go Backyard Express to Molly's place. The cab accelerated, ancient gas-powered engine, a discordant symphony of pounding pistons and manifold noise. Richard slumped back against the vinyl cushions, and what he hoped was deeper shadow. Hey, I just seen you on the freebie, the cabbie exclaimed. You're that guy Pritchard. Pritchard, that's right, Richard said resignedly. The Games building was dwindling behind them. A psychological shadow seemed to be dwindling proportionately in his mind, in spite of the bad luck with the cabbie. Jesus, you got balls, buddy. I'll say that. You really do. Christ, they'll kill you. You know that? They'll get dead. You must really have balls. That's right. 2 of them, just like you. 2 of them, the cabbie repeated. He was ecstatic. Jesus, that's good. That's hot. You mind if I tell my wife I had you as a fare? She goes batshit for the Games. I have to report you, but Christ, I won't get no hunert for it. Cabbie's gotta have at least one supporting witness, you know. Knowing my luck, no one saw you getting in. That would be tough, Richard said. I'm sorry you can't help kill me. Should I leave a note saying I was here? Jesus, could you? That'd be they had just crossed the canal. Let me out here, Richard said abruptly. He pulled a new $1 from the envelope Thompson had handed him and dropped it on the front seat. Gee, I didn't say nothing, did I? I didn't mean to. No, Richard said. Could you give me that note? Get stuffed, maggot. He lunged out and began walking toward Drummond Street. Co-op City rose skeletal in the gathering darkness before him. The cabbie's yell floated after him. I hope they get you early, you cheap fuck. Good gracious, so we're out of the games building, and now we see how the next 30 days goes. As we know, he will be, I think that's what it said. They hunt him for 30 days. Yeah. Minus 078 and counting. Through a backyard, through a ragged hole in the cyclone fence, separating one barren asphalt desert from another, across a ghostly abandoned construction site, pausing far back in shattered shadows as a cycle roared by, headlamps glaring in the dark like a psychopathic eyes of nocturnal werewolves. Then over a final fence, cut in one hand, and he was rapping on Molly Jernigan's back door, which is to say, the main entrance. Molly ran a Dock Street hawk shop, where a fellow with enough bucks spread around could buy a police special move-along, a full chalk riot gun, a submachine gun, heroin, bush, cocaine, drag disguises, a stereo flex pseudo woman, a real horror if you were too strapped to afford stereo flex, the current address of one of 3 floating crap games, the current address of a swinging perverto club, or 100 other illegal items. If Molly didn't have what you wanted, he would order it for you, including false papers. When he opened the peephole and saw who it was, he offered a kindly smile and said, "Why don't you go away, pal? I never saw you." "New dollars," Richards remarked, as if to the air itself. There was a pause. Richard studied the cuff of his shirt as if he had never seen it before. Then the bolts and locks were opened quickly, as if Molly were afraid Richards would change his mind. Richards came in. They were in Molly's place behind the store, which was a rat warren of old newsies, stolen musical instruments, stolen cameras, and boxes of black market groceries. Molly was by necessity something of a Robin Hood. A pawnbroker south of the canal did not remain in business long if he became too greedy. Molly took the rich uptown maggots as heavy as he could and sold to the neighborhood at close to cost, sometimes lower than cost if some pal was being squeezed hard. Thus his reputation in Co-op City was excellent, his protection superb. If a cop asked a South City stoolie, and there were hundreds of them, about Molly Jernigan, the informant let it be known that Molly was a slightly senile old-timer who took a little graft and sold a little black market. Any number of uptown swells with strange sexual tendencies could have told the police differently. But there was no vice busts anymore. Everyone knew vice was bad for any real revolutionary climate. The fact that Molly had run the moderately profitable trade in forged documents strictly for local customers was unknown uptown. Still, Richards knew tooling papers for someone as hot as he would be extremely dangerous. "What papers?" Molly asked, sighing deeply, and turning on the ancient gooseneck lamp that flooded the working area of his desk with bright white light. He was an old man, approaching 75, with a close glow of the light. His hair looked like spun silver. Driver's license, military service card, street identification, axial charge card, social retirement card. Easy. $60 job for anybody but you, Benny. You'll do it? For your wife, I'll do it. For you, no. I don't put my head in the news for any crazy-ass bastard like Benny Richards. How long, Molly? Molly's eyes flashed sardonically. Knowing your situation as I do, I'll hurry it. An hour for each. Christ, 5 hours? Can I go? No, you can't. Are you nuts, Benny? A cop comes pulling up to your development last week. He's got an envelope for your old lady. He came in the black wagon with about 6 buddies. Flapper Donegan was standing at the comer pitching nicks with Jerry Hanrahan. Why do these names have to be so hard to say? When it transfigures, Flapper tells me everything. The boy's soft, you know. I know Flapper's soft, Richard said impatiently. I sent the money. Is she? Who knows? Who sees? Molly shrugged and rolled his eyes as he put pens and blank forms in the center of the pool of light thrown by the lamp. They're 4 deep around your building, Benny. Anyone who's sent to offer their condolences would end up in the cellar talking to a bunch of rubber clubs. Even good friends don't need that scam. Not even your old lady Flush. You got a name you want special in these? Doesn't matter as long as it's Anglo. Jesus, Molly. She must have come out for groceries and the doctor. She sent Budgie Sanchez's kid. What's his name? Walt. Yeah, that's it. I can't keep the goddamn specs and mix straight no more. Specs and mix. A lot of racial slurs. Gotta remember, this was way, way back in the early 80s. I'm getting senile, Benny. Blowing my cool. He glared at Richard suddenly. I remember when Mick Jagger was a big name. You don't even know who he was, do you? I know who he was, Richard said, distraught. He turned to Molly's sidewalk level window, frightened. It was worse than he thought. Sheila and Kathy were in the cage. Were in the cage, too. At least until... That's okay, Benny, Molly said softly. Just stay away. You're poisoned to them now. Can you dig it? Yes, Richard said. He was suddenly overwhelmed with despair, black and awful. I'm so homesick, he thought. I'm homesick, he thought, amazed. But it was more. It was worse. Everything seemed out of whack, surreal. The very fabric of existence bulging at the seams, faces whirling. Laughlin, Burns, Killian, Janksy, Molly, Kathy, Sheila. He looked into the blackness, trembling. Molly had gone to work, crooning some old song from his vacant past. Something about having Betty Davis eyes. Who the hell was that? Sorry. Who the hell was that? He was a drummer, Richard said suddenly. With the English group The Beatles? Mick McCarthy? Yeah, you kids, Molly said, bent over his work. That's all you kids know. Telling you. Wow. That's got me laughing now. I can't. Okay. We're going to stop. Next, we'll pick up at 077. In case anybody doesn't know, because, that does happen. Okay. I'm going to look it up just so I can say it. She's an American singer, songwriter, and model, is who Betty Davis was. And she's great. Yeah. Y'all really gotta look up some stuff, I'm telling you. She passed away of cancer. But she was great. Yeah. October of 89. But, yeah, there's so many names that if they passed away before you were born, if you don't actually look them up, there's people that I have seen on TV that passed away before I was born in the 70s, and I have to go look them up. or they passed away in the 80s and I just don't remember. Like, I see them on TV, but I don't remember what else I've seen them on, or, what their career was made of. So I'll go look them up, and it's how you get your education when it comes to certain things. You really have to look things up. You see somebody passed away, they're in their 80s, they're in their 90s, they're in their 70s, whatever, go look them up. I mean, some people, for instance, might not even know who Pee Wee Herman was. They'd be like, who? And you really, really gotta go look. He, in the 80s, he did Pee Wee's Playhouse. Paul Rubens, who passed away recently, he played Pee Wee. And that was his thing. Like, I don't think there's anything else I've seen him on besides Pee Wee. And that was his biggest thing. I don't remember watching anything else with him. But there's a lot of things he was on. Like, for people who watch Bob's Burgers, he was a voice on there, He did Dybbuk in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. He did the voice. And if you look down some more, he did Locke from The Nightmare Before Christmas in concert at Hollywood Bowl. Yes, I'm going down. He even did Elijah Van Dahl on Gotham. But he did a lot of Pee Wee. Pee Wee was his main thing. It's like once you get put into a certain role, then that's all you're known for. And he did Jokey Smurf for the Smurfs, which is really awesome. But yeah, he just, it's like Harry Potter. Daniel Radcliffe was known for Harry Potter. And if you go back to anything else yes, my nose itches. If you go back to anything else, like if you have a big TV series, that person will be known for that one role, and they're stuck in that one role. And they have to figure out how to get out of that role to get into something else. And that's kind of what they're known for, So you just have to really do some research, do some looking, figure it out. But yeah, Betty Davis was a good singer. So Mick Jagger was a singer. The Rolling Stones. I don't think anybody doesn't know that one. Am I right? Is it Mick Jagger for the Rolling Stones? Yes, he's the Rolling Stones. He's actually in his 80s. So, yeah. A lot of people may not, know. So, wow, they did a lot of songs. Yeah. But I was just looking at, like, a biography, and I don't want to watch a video. Oh, he also did Super Heavy, and then Jagger and Richards. So, he had a couple of different groups. Yeah. You guys will have to check them out. Anyway, we're going to stop there for reading. My son came down. That was funny. Because he was in shorts and tank top. But he brought a cat down. Cat's flipping out. Why is this cat flipping out? Because we have big dogs and the cats don't like the big dogs. That's why. Our dogs don't like the cats. Cats don't like the dogs. I mean, it's a whole thing. Okay. I will have to get going. I need to go get my pups. I let them out to just enjoy themselves because it wasn't raining. And it's going to start raining here shortly, and it rained earlier, so I don't want them to get soaked. So I will talk to you guys again hopefully tomorrow, and we will read some more. Maybe we can get through to 070 tomorrow. So we'll see what we can do. But you guys have a good day. God bless. Bye.